Awesome to see everyone. And it's not every day that we get to talk about new industry coming into Jefferson County, so that's always exciting. But I have with me today Emily Dalager and Jinnie Hall from the Wild Hill Solar Project. They work for EDF Renewables, and Jinnie is the Community Relations Manager. Emily is the Project Manager. You may have heard of the Wild Hill Solar Project being proposed in the county. So I will turn it over to Emily to kick off discussion, and then I know that they're going to allow for some Q&A, and you'll get to know these ladies. So welcome to Rotary.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for your warm welcome, and you've got quite a nice bunch here, and I like the way you kick off your meetings. Very, very warm and inviting. My name's Emily Dalager. I'm with EDF Renewables. I've been with the company for a little over 3 years. I've been doing renewable energy development for about 12 years and have recently been working in Jefferson County since 2018, have been in the studying and development stage of a solar project. And the project sits on approximately 795 acres, and we have 3 participating local landowners involved in the project. And we have been watching from the sidelines as Jefferson County works through their ordinance process in order to allow for solar as part of the comprehensive plan, and are eagerly moving the project forward. And I'm just very excited about solar development in West Virginia. It's one of the first few projects, utility scale, to have gotten, that is actually midway through the PSC process. And so the project will bring a lot of benefits to the community, jobs, and revenue to the community. So we are really happy to introduce the project and answer any questions you folks might have. Jinnie, you want to share a few things?
Thanks, Emily. Good morning, all. I guess it's afternoon now for you folks. My name is Jinnie Hall. I'm the Community Relations Manager with EDF Renewables. I am embarking on my 15th year here with the company and have really seen the renewable industry grow quite exponentially over my tenure with EDF. It's exciting to see solar come to the Midwest and in areas that historically had been in other parts of the country, now falling under the Minneapolis team's development house, if you will. Very exciting time for us. My primary role within the company is to really complement and support the work of the developers. So Emily and the great work that she has done thus far, making sure that the project participants receive regular updates from us, engaging with local areas and departments such as yourself, ensuring that donations are made on behalf of the project and the company to local nonprofit organizations is something that I coordinate, as well as making sure that there's a digital presence when appropriate. So websites, project email addresses, staffing of the landowner service team, which oversees our landowner helpline for any questions that may arise to the various projects that we are working on. So thank you very much for your time, and I very much am looking forward to working with you all.
Emily, do you have other things you want to discuss, or do we want to open it up for questions and see if folks have heard of the project and if they have?
Let's open it up for questions. I think that there's a lot of information in the community, but yeah, interested in what these folks would want to spend our time on.
Awesome. Does anyone want to kick us off?
Could you refresh me on where your 3 properties are and what that kind of breakdown might look like?
Sure. So the project is between 340 and Cabletown Road. And so we have three participating landowners, and each of them have put a parcel into the project. So yeah, sort of, 3 landowners, there's, I'm sure you folks know like the properties over there, the Zieglers and the Huffs and the Ristlers.
In between Cloverdale and Eastland, I believe.
I believe so, yes.
Where do you sell the electricity to?
The electricity is it's a wholesale generator, so the power just goes right out onto the grid. So it's clean energy that's used locally, but there's a virtual power purchase agreement with offtake that the power isn't sold immediately out into, right into the community there. It's considered a virtual power purchase agreement, so it's more of a financial transaction, but the green energy is used locally.
Who will ultimately benefit from this?
The community will, the landowners will. There will be tax revenues into the community, and the landowners and the labor force. There'll be approximately a year-long construction process where we estimate we'll pay approximately $12 million to the laborers, and then we anticipate approximately 3 to 5 permanent jobs going forward.
Emily, how much construction does that take to, create something of that magnitude?
It's we estimate about 8 to 12 months. And because it is one of the earlier utility scale projects in the state, we anticipate that labor force will then sort of roll onto other solar projects that we know are regionally coming behind the project. There's one in Berkeley County, there's one in Raleigh County. So the labor force, training up and then sort of moving out into the rest of the state and region. We're also pairing with the Washington High School. We anticipate putting a program together where we can work with some of the students there and introduce them to the project and to the industry. And there's one other education organization that we've been talking to, that Rumsfeld, James Rumsfeld Education. Yeah. So we'll be working with those folks as well.
So how did this project come about and why this area?
So EDF does development in 2 ways. One is greenfield, where developers ourselves look at good locations for solar, looking for high voltage transmission lines, flat land, contiguous flat land, power lines that can take more power onto the grid and transmit that power. And another way that development happens is there are certain companies that will just do early stage development, where they will locate interested landowners near high voltage transmission, flat lands with a good solar resource, and then sort of put the beginning pieces together, and then partner with an organization like EDF that will then co-develop with that group to take it to construction. And in this case, a group called Galehead Energy did the early stage development, and they're based in Boston. And so they met with the local landowners and really got the interconnect application going through PJM, and really put the project, the beginning pieces of the project together. And then we've been working with them collectively to move the project forward, doing all of the studies and up above ground and underground kind of studies.
How many panels or units, whatever the case, correct terminology is, how much can we expect to see on that 700, almost 800 acres?
Sure. So approximately 270,000 panels. But that can vary depending on the kind of panel you use. There are larger panels and smaller panels. So it's a 92.5 megawatt project sitting on this land, and the entirety of the land isn't covered. So we call it ground coverage ratio. So the GCR is approximately 40%. So 40% of the land will have panels on them, and the panels will be set on trackers. So they will, like a sunflower, they will follow the sun. So, permeability and those kinds of things aren't really a concern. The land will be planted in a native low growth kind of a clover or something like that. That's so low maintenance and permeable, much more permeable than the agricultural activity that's happening on the lands now.
What type of reception are you receiving from the county?
The county seems very interested. I think the commissioners and planning and zoning, they all seem, from my perspective, they seem motivated to put some kind of a solar amendment to the comprehensive plan. Mixed reviews, as is most locations where we develop. Some folks are very enthusiastic about new economy or new industry coming in, sort of signaling to the world that the county is open for business and hoping to draw other industry because there's green energy there. And then other folks who, are worried about change and concerns about, how it's going to look. But we hope that we're addressing those issues with discussing buffering for, tree buffering from certain, view locations, wherever there's a home, we would plant trees so they wouldn't, see the solar farm. And so there will be an 8-foot safety fence around the project, and lighting will be, just at the entrance. I know some folks have worried that there will be, a lot of lighting or security cameras or, razor wire or something like that kind of around the perimeter, and that's not the case. It'll be an 8-foot security fence and just lighting at the entrance and no cameras. And so, I know folks have been concerned that, you might be able to, the cameras could see into somebody else's backyard or something like that. And so that's not the case.
Emily, 2 more questions. You mentioned about a handful of permanent management jobs, but
Sure.
How many jobs does it take to complete the project? Is it hundreds? Is it 50?
Yeah, so we estimate about 150 to 200 construction jobs. And those folks would be trained up, and then some folks would be made electricians or improve their skills to actually have a greater skill set to take away and to use at other projects as well.
Emily, I'm always happy to hear about green energy, and solar has got to be the most benign generation method that I can think. But is it going to have any effect on my electric bill?
You will see green energy. It will not have a negative effect on your electric bill, and in fact, solar, the cost to produce solar energy is on par with other energy sources. So I wouldn't your bill will not increase. This is not part of this. Is the cost of this is not being shifted to retail customers. So no, you shouldn't see it, and you will not see an effect on your bill. We hope that it will actually bring costs down across all energy sectors, but at this point, it will not have a negative effect on your bill.
All right. Any other questions?
I am just a little bit curious. How does that work with you? You mentioned that only 40% of the roughly, I'm rounding up here, roughly 800 acres, only 40% of that would be covered in solar. So how does the other, 60% get used, or is that just getting spaced out, or what?
Yeah,
how does that work?
Good question. They're all spaced out because panels cannot shade each other, or they will, they won't be efficient. So there needs to be enough space in between panels. So if you can imagine, so there's like slowly rotating through the day like that, you know, with an orientation to the south. So there needs to be spacing to prevent shading from one to the next.
So how does the other, so you'll use the full 800-ish acres,
That's
but
right.
it will only be covered 40% with the panels. So how does, so it's not necessarily farmable land, like some, I guess where I'm going with this is that some projects I've heard of have actually had some ability to kind of farm underneath the panels, but that, it sounds like that probably will not be the case in this scenario.
Probably not. Smaller projects, much smaller projects that can be, you know, controlled and contained. You might do, you know, you might have strawberries or some grazing, something like that. With more of a utility scale for safety reasons, you know, only folks inside who might be doing groundskeeping, mowing, and maintenance would be allowed inside. But it would be, like I said, a native low growth. You know, I could see, you know, haying in between the rows, depending on the native mix, to keep some of that growth down. If it did have to be hayed, depending on, you know, how hot, tall it would get. So you wouldn't want the grasses to be tall enough to be shading the panels.
Right.
So no, not really. I'm in the sort of in the margins. A lot of times there are, you know, folks will do beehives, or they may do, so we would have like the whole parcel, but based on the orientation of the panels, and they have to be oriented towards the south and then rotate, there will be gaps inside where there could potentially be, you know, beehives or something like that. That would be, you know, contained and away from panels, but not underneath the panels. We wouldn't be designing for that.
And is it usually that kind of partnership that you see when you're trying to have a parcel where you sort of have this multidisciplinary, you know, approach, I guess?
Sure.
You know, is that sort of a pretty common pairing that you would see, you know, in terms of beehives?
Jinnie can probably speak more to that. I think we've done that in New York State. What kinds of partnerships have you seen, Jinnie?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. So there have been a number rather of potential partnership opportunities. One might be our Armprior project, for example, in Canada, utilizes both beekeeping partnerships on site, sheep grazing, and that is then the foliage that they graze on is local plantings or native plantings, I guess, to the area. So the ground underneath those panels is kept intact with the ground covering that is native to that particular area. And then the sheep actually maintain the ground covering so it doesn't get too tall to impede the productivity of the panels. So they are partnering with a local sheep herder, and he brings his crew in every once in a while, and they come in and they get a full belly, and the project has a win-win scenario here where maintenance is taking place and the farmer then is able to help take care of his sheep with that partnership with the project.
So if someone is interested in doing that kind of, you know, creative partnership, whether it's a beekeeper or you know, the landowner with some other creative idea, will they go through EDF for that, or Wild Hill Solar, or will they go through the landowners?
It would be with EDF because
Okay.
EDF is leasing the entire parcel, and then it'll be under EDF control for the life of the project, which we estimate, you know, 35 to 40 years.
Okay.
So yeah, it would be, you know, reaching out to us and working out a partnership or a design, or, you know, exciting something like that.
That's great.
I know, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I know you said that there's various sized panels. What's the dimensions kind of like look like? How tall? Like, what's the presentation look like?
Sure. So we do have a one pager that Jinnie can and Tiffany can share with the group here. But we wouldn't anticipate the panel at its highest sort of rotation to be more than 10 to 12 feet. You know, so generally lower than that. And the panels are, you know, there are several sort of stacked together on a rack that rotate. So understanding the size of the panel is, you know, which might be 1.5 by 2 feet or 2 feet by 3 feet. There would be, you know, a few of them stacked up on a rack that's rotational. So you know, just understanding the size of the panel is a little, you know, that doesn't quite get you the full picture.
All right, I got a question about like snow coverage. Whenever they get covered with snow, does the tilt during the day, as it tracks the sun, help remove the snow in most cases, or is there like a grounds crew that comes in to sweep them off after there's been a big snow?
You're right. The rotation does dump the snow off from the one side to the other. There's also they don't create heat, but there is a very, very low sort of irradiance that comes off of the panel that would melt any ice or snow that might get stuck to the panel.
Okay.
Looks like there's a question that came through the chat about long-term maintenance. How many years do they last?
So projects are designed to last approximately 35 to 45 years. Panels themselves have a life of about 25 years. So at that point, the project could potentially be retrofit to smaller or more efficient panels. The project size could shrink, or, you know, in certain cases, you could put an additional interconnect position in at that substation and upsize the project and keep the same size, but just have more efficient panels. We do anticipate, you know, in 20 to 25 years, there will be more efficient panels. We've seen efficiencies increase just over the past couple of years.
And another question, what sources of financing are you planning to use?
So EDF, we build off of our own balance sheets. We do work with some tax equity groups, but it is it's EDF financed.
I have another question in regards to the panels. So when they reach the end of their useful life, how do you dispose of them, and what's I know there's sort of some contention around, you know, disposal requirements and so forth.
Sure. So there is the project owner is required to decommission the project, and in the very unlikely event that project owner is not there any longer, which we do not anticipate happening. We've been around for 30 years. But that we place a surety bond in order to ensure that there are, you know, resources to decommission the project. And most of the project is recyclable. The piles that go into the ground are made of steel, so we would fully remove all of the piles from the ground and recycle that. And the panels are primarily glass and aluminum, so that would all be recycled as well.
Thank you.
All right, really, really good information. Thank you, Emily and Jenny. Appreciate you all being on with us. And Tiffany, thanks for helping set this up.
Sure.
Thanks for having us, folks, and would be happy to answer more questions if you have any.
And Emily, I'll be glad to send your fact sheet to the group.
Thank you.
One more question that came through. When are the bonds renewed?
They're permanently placed.
All right.
I have one more question.
Yep.
I'm always good for that. So what are the next steps forward? What do we, you know, February 10th, what's your kind of timeline trajectory? What does that look like?
So the project is going through the state siting permit process. And so there was a hearing about a week and a half ago. And so we'll be hoping for, sorry, one of my watches is going off. We'll be, hoping for a good outcome at the state level. And, we are watching the local ordinance process. And, once there is a process in place, we would anticipate applying for a local permit as well. So those would be our next steps.
And so do you think that the project will be completed by 2021, 2022?
Oh, sure. I understand your question. So we would hope for a end of 2022 commercial operation date, constructing through 2022, and wrapping up development in 2021.
Good questions. Anything else?
So Chris, I have to ask, just because they're new to the area, do you anticipate having a permanent employee join Rotary?
Oh,
I'm kidding. You don't have to answer that, but we always welcome folks, certainly business leaders, to join us in Rotary.
You're absolutely right, Tiffany. Good question. Are the bonds tied to cost replacement? Are the bonds tied to cost of replacement?
the bonds are tied to somewhat. They are, it depends on how the county would request the surety bond be placed. Typically, it's a percentage and a percentage of the total amount, but that percentage is mostly administrative. There's a lot of salvage value in the recycled materials, the steel, all the steel that's in the ground and all the steel in the racking, and all the glass and the aluminum in the panels has a high recycled rate. So that covers a lot of the cost as well.
All right. Well, again, thank you for your time today. We appreciate you being on, and really interesting information, and good luck with the project.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time.
All right. Anything for the good of the group from anyone?
I just want to add that the 24th is the next Zoom Wednesday meeting, and we'll be hearing from Gap Coalition and Charlestown Farmers Market and Bushel and Peck, Fiona Harrison, and I'm having a brain fart. Yes, Todd Coyle. Thank you. I know Todd's name. All right. Anyway, Todd and Fiona will be with us. So please join us.
Awesome. I hope to see you all next week at the painting project. All right. Enjoy your
I
week.
hope to see you at the happy hour and the painting project.
And the happy hour. Yes.
Bye, guys.
See ya.